Welcome to Penny's Pantry. I'm Penny and I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm making butternut squash sauce. So I'm going to take my butternut squash and I'm just going to cut off the top, and then I'm going to just open it up to 2 halves. I'm going to clean out the seeds and just get it ready to be put onto the baking pan. I sliced off the tops of the small red peppers and put them on the baking pan. I took 2 heads of garlic and sliced off the top of the garlic to expose each of the cloves. Now this is just a little extra step that I like to do. I like to take out the little pieces of garlic left in the top of the garlic heads, and I just use that for some little extra flavoring. Finally, I took a sweet onion and I cut it in half and got it ready to be put on the baking pan. I'm going to drizzle the whole thing with some olive oil, and I'm going to put it in the oven at 400 degrees for about 45 minutes to an hour. So after about 45 minutes to about an hour at 400 degrees, I took everything out of the oven. I let it cool for just a smidge just so I could handle it pretty well. It is still smoky. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these pieces in the blender. Now, I just want to say I sell Pampered Chef. So I use the Pampered Chef blender, which actually you can make sauce with it and soup because it's heated. But there's other options. If you don't want to get one of those, you could just use a regular blender. So this is the onion I'm just throwing in the way that it is. These are the peppers. I'm going to peel them. As I said, they're easy to handle because I let it cool for a little bit, but they are still kind of hot. So I'm just peeling off the skin of the peppers. I don't want the skin in my sauce. Could you leave it in there? Sure. It's up to you, however you want to do it. The funny thing, the good thing about being your own cook and cooking your own meals is you can do it the way you want to do it. I don't want the skin, so I'm peeling it. Am I doing it perfectly? No, because it's going to be milled up so finely that it doesn't matter. But I want to get the big pieces off as much as possible. Okay, so the peppers are done. So I'm just scooping it out. Now, there's other ways you could do this. You could peel it before you put it in the oven, and that works too. You can cube it up and bake it, roast it. Same thing, works fine. I just do it like this because I think it's easier, but you could do your own thing. So I'm trying to get some of this oil that was drizzled to mix in so that I can get it into the blender. Now, the reason why I put peppers is for the sweetness. I use red peppers. Now, I should have used the red peppers, but I didn't. I used the smaller lunchbox size, they're called. That's what the local farmer had. I try to shop as local as possible. And this is not a great time of year for produce unless you find a farmer that does greenhouse or hothouse. Now I live in South Carolina, so it's a little bit better because you get a little bit more of a growing season than if you live in the north. But you can shop local as much as possible. Always support your local farmers. Always support as much as you can those small businesses, especially around the holidays, which we are getting into. It's important to do that. Okay, now I have the garlic, and it's just roasted garlic, and you're just going to squeeze it in as much as possible. Now, I like to try to get as much garlic out as possible. So now now I say the word squoze. I'm sorry if you think I'm weird, but after I squoze it, I'm going to try to get as much out as possible. And I see those videos, those short videos that they just squeeze it in and it all comes out so perfectly. Well, the reality is sometimes it doesn't always do that. And when it does do that, it's great, but not all the garlic comes out. You always have residual garlic left behind. And you know what? I like my garlic. So I don't want anything left behind. I want it all in my blender. Okay, so I'm going to put the blender together. Now I'm going to just set it. Now my blender has a setting for soup or sauce or heated puree or jam. It really can do anything. So what I'm going to do is right now I'm just going to pulse it and I'm just going to grind it down as much as possible, and then I'm going to scrape the sides, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm just going to sometimes when you don't have a lot of liquid, which we don't, and I'm going to explain that in a second. Sometimes when you don't have a lot of liquid, you get air pockets. So once you get the air pocket, you need to just scrape it down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 cup of vegetable broth. And vegetable broth, you can buy that if you want to, but it's super easy to make too with all different kinds of vegetables. You could just, boil it just like you would with chicken broth, but you do it with vegetables. So I just have a cup of my vegetable broth. Put the lid back on. I'm going to pulse it again. Okay, it's all smooth. It's running through the thing really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it run its cycle. And in the meantime, I'm going to boil up some pasta. Okay, so my sauce is done. It got up to about 200 degrees, and I'm just going to try not to make a huge mess. And now, if you don't have the heated blender, my suggestion is blend it up in a blender or in a food processor, and then put it on the stove and bring it up to temperature about 200 or so. And meanwhile, just try to keep it stirring as much as possible so it doesn't burn on the end on the bottom. But this is a good consistency. I know you can't really see it, but I'll show you, you'll see it when I put it on. So it's thick, it covers a spoon. Okay, I'm gonna try it. Ooh, it's so good. That's really good. So the butternut squash is really thick, so it gives it that nice, good coating. The garlic, I had 2 heads of garlic to 1 large butternut squash. I wouldn't do any less than that. I really wouldn't. Maybe another half would be great, but I wouldn't do any less. I'm a garlic person though. Garlic is good for you. It's got some health benefits. Plus, it gives everything such a wonderful flavor. The other thing, the peppers. So if you did a bell pepper instead of those little lunchbox peppers or whatever they're called, if you did a bell pepper that has a little bit more meatier, it might be a little sweeter. But I really like this flavor. It is really good. Now, I didn't even add salt and pepper to it yet, which I'm going to do, but I didn't do it yet. So what I'm going to do is let me get my ladle. So I have my ladle, and I'm just going to, this is my nice big ladle too. Just going to put it right on top of the pasta. Okay. Let me get my spatula, and I'm just going to work it into the pasta. I'm trying not to make a huge mess because my bowl probably is not big enough. I did 2 pounds of penne. You can do linguine or fettuccine. Either of those would be great. I did the penne because I'm going to actually heat this up tomorrow and bring it somewhere. So I wanted to make sure that the penne just heats up better than linguine or fettuccine. So I used my ladle, but I don't think I really needed to. I think I'm just going to pour it right on. Okay, so I'm going to put some on my plate. And this is going to be good the way it is. It really is. It's going to be great with this flavor. But I like to add a little fresh pepper, a little bit of Himalayan salt, and then I have some fresh feta. Let's see, couple of noodles, piece of feta. This is a great dish. It would be a main dish in my book, or a great side on your Thanksgiving table or your Christmas Eve dinner or whatever fancy dinner you want. But this is great the way it is. I'm going to continue having my butternut squash pasta, and I'll see you next time on Penny's Pantry.